welcome to episode 72 of the Influence and Growth Mastery podcast. Today, I have an extraordinary guest and friend with me here today. His name is Chris Cowden, and our title for the podcast today is Your Network is Your Net Worth in so many ways. Start podcasting and you'll never look back. And I have to say that the title that he chose is so fitting. And I often say to Chris that your network is your net worth. Chris is a busy entrepreneur from the United Kingdom. He is, or was a prior chef, and now he is speaking to CEOs with many industry leaders and brands in the podcasting industry. He is known as the expert whisperer, and hopefully we hear more about that here just shortly. He is the CEO of the podcast launch agency. He's also the podcast host at Talking with Experts podcast. He's the prior employee, but continues to be the brand ambassador at AppSumo, which I love AppSumo. Later this month, he is joining the podcast show 2023 in London, and has several of his accelerator students attending with him, which is such an honor. And I have to tell you, I am extremely jealous that, Chris, you're attending this without me. But fortunately or unfortunately, and I'm going to say it's fortunately, that I'm choosing my family vacation over London this year. But hopefully next year I'll be able to join you, Chris, in London and other podcast shows with you. But Chris, welcome to the show today. As I mentioned, you're an extraordinary guest to have on my show today.
Thank you so much, Tonya. Great introduction, and to be called a friend, it's a privilege. Thank you.
Well, from the first post that we met on LinkedIn, I tell you there was an interaction between us, and hopefully we'll have a moment to talk about that here in just a little bit. But I know, Chris, that there's a story. There has to be a story behind the title that you've been given of the expert whisperer. It's such a fantastic title. How did you get that?
Yeah, it's funny. So when I first started Talking with Expert podcast, it didn't have a name. It came from my second interview with Phil Better, the podcast mogul. He said, "Oh, what's this podcast called? Talking with Experts." And I said, "Oh, that's a great name. Let's call it." So for me, starting the podcast I didn't do it correctly. I didn't have a name. I didn't have a format. I didn't know who I was going to interview, what I was going to talk about. And that just, the process evolved from there. And then maybe episode 15, Phil said, "You're the expert whisperer." So any name I've been given has just come from interactions with Phil, which is crazy. So because I interview experts and have a growing network of experts, and everybody that I interact with said, "Chris, you know every single expert in the world, and you talk quietly, and you were able to get into their not minds, but you were able to just do some collaborations with them and leading with a different kind of energy." That's just how the expert whisperer came to life, and I've just stuck with it. I think it's part of the brand now.
I love it, because I do think it's part of your brand, because, when we met and then I found out you had that title, I thought that's an extraordinary title for you. And as I just mentioned, it matches your brand perfectly. And I knew there had to be a story behind it. And gosh, I had no idea that that's how you got it. But you do. The interaction that you have with people is amazing. And, the perspective that you have on networking and relationship building and the collaborations that you do with people is phenomenal. And you have such a way it just comes natural for you to build those relationships. And so really that goes on into what I want to talk about today. Being the main topic for you is you have the podcast launch agency helping people launch their podcasts from nothing to growing it and monetizing it. And so tell us, and you do talk to a lot of experts and create partnerships with entities. So tell us about podcasting from that perspective of networking and building relationships and collaborations.
Yeah, of course. So for me, starting my podcast, Talking with Experts, was a little bit of an experiment. And because I kept in touch with the experts that had been on my podcast and built really strong relationships with them, they wanted to work with me in the future. And I ran different events and supported them with their business. And they've just naturally wanted to follow suit and support me on my venture. So now when we launch a podcast for somebody, it's an easy introduction to those experts because we've built trust with them. And as our network expands and we build relationships with more experts, fortunately, they're industry-leading experts that we originally had on our podcast that we've just built really strong relationships. We can rely on them to help us with marketing, help us with social media marketing or SEO or web design. And that's just how we built those strong partnerships, is built on trust and it's crazy to say it, but love for one another, and we support each other. We want the same. We want to improve the podcasting industry, but make it a closer community of people that are like a really strong inner circle. That's what all of our focus is on. And fortunately, because those values align, as soon as an expert wants to launch, grow, and monetize a podcast, we can either outsource, white label, or support each other by sharing leads. Or it's amazing what you can create once you've built that initial trust, but over 1, 2, 3, 4 years.
I completely agree. And so let's dive into that just a little bit, because you call it a community, and it is a community, but it reminds me of so much more, because I think within your community, there's a mastermind of experts who do mastermind together inside the community. And so it's almost like you have the experts who bring in the undergraduates, if you will, and they take them under their wing and they train them. They train them up to then become experts. And then it's like, then that you bring in another group and you're training them to become experts. But all while you're doing that, you are cultivating a community at the same time, and one that's built upon truth, trust, relationships and honesty and all of these things. And you're sharing what works, what doesn't work. And if something doesn't work, you're like, okay, so let's scrap this and go on to what does work. And so it's like you're always getting better and better and better.
Yeah, it's definitely a culture of progress. But what I've always thought of is, experts that haven't had a breakthrough can come into the community, get the breakthrough by getting support from one of the experts that we're associated with, but also giving all experts at whatever level they are in the podcasting, on their podcasting journey, is they have all got the stage to share their expertise. So they can join the live streams or share in a mastermind, because you know more about growth mastery and influence than I do, and you can share your expertise on that area. Somebody else can share their expertise on TikTok lead generation, and that way we can. It's great what we've created, and people are coming into the industry with a desire to get to up level themselves as an expert. And if they walk away with a brand new podcast that's generated them more authority online. Perfect.
Well, and one of the things that I love about what you're doing is every person that comes in, you're giving them that stage on your stage, and a lot of the experts are doing the same thing because you're interviewing them. Talk about that a little bit, about how you're giving that stage to the new people that are coming in.
Yeah, so usually the first question is when they join the community through. At the moment, it's on Facebook, but we're talking to different experts in the Web3 space to see if we can build a community that we own rather than on Facebook. But see, just we're constantly learning. I think it's important that personal growth is one of our top priorities. We're not experts when we start out, but as we go and improve the skills, we become experts just by trial and error. We don't necessarily need to have a PhD or MBA in front or behind our name, but as long as we've failed many times and found out a way that we can launch and grow and we can monetize those podcasts, then we can help as the experts there. But I think the stage that we give is that the live events on the accelerator programs. We want to help people get their voice out. So the best way to get their voice out is to give them the opportunity to step out of their comfort zone in a very supportive environment, to share a couple of actionable tips or share what projects they're working on. Because a lot of the times, if I am the community host, all the content is about helping you, but it's also about I, and I don't want that. I'm very humble. I want to give everybody in my community the voice that they're also being heard and seen. And with their podcast, they can create the content for them, but also feel like they can have a bit of a trial run inside a community that supports them and wants to hear what they're working on. Because as experts in the community would say, oh, that aligns with me. I can help you here.
I love it. I love it so much. Well, and two, in building those relationships like that first, helps them to build that comfort zone and gives them the self-esteem, the confidence that they need to then go out and do that same thing themselves. So one of the most amazing things that I've seen you do, and again, I know it's because of who you are personally and the skill set that you have to build such a network and relationships and collaborations. But that is to build a business upon partnerships and partnerships for your community. And upcoming, you have an amazing, I know it's going to be a blowout. I cannot wait till next Monday, but I have set aside, I think I have 2 short meetings on Monday, and the rest of the day, you're going to see me live. But you have a 12-hour live event of 24 plus speakers that is sponsored by AppSumo. Tell the audience a little bit about what's going to happen on this 12-hour live event, and let's get people to show up.
Yeah, of course. So as Tonya mentioned previously, I was able to work at AppSumo for about 11 or so months. That came directly from launching a podcast. I've interviewed a lot of people in a short period of time, created enough momentum, surrounding myself with the right experts that were just becoming industry-leading experts, but after 2 or 3 years, their momentum has just skyrocketed, which is amazing to see. And on episode 50, I interviewed Head of Growth at AppSumo, Chris Chelsea, and that led to the podcast being sponsored, and then a conversation about me joining the team. I just warm emailed them to say, are you hiring internationally? Yes. No. Here's the hiring team. And then I just got a backdoor introduction or entrance into the company without them ever seeing my resume. They just saw the podcast was a success and they said, join our team and help us launch products on AppSumo. So that was a blast. Ever since starting with them in November 2021, I've kept in touch with them. And through working at AppSumo, they love people that take initiative and start side hustles or start their entrepreneurship journey. And I decided to go all in on podcasting because that's originally where I had my breakthrough, and I wanted to help other people have their breakthrough. So I kept in touch with AppSumo, helped other people launch their products on AppSumo, increase their users by 1,000, or build another income stream. And then AppSumo, in a meeting 2 or 3 months ago, said, Cast Magic is doing really well on AppSumo, and some of the podcasting tools are doing really well on AppSumo. And we'd like to run a podcast campaign. And in this private meeting that they had, my name came up in a meeting to say,
Wow.
Chris is a podcaster. Chris is doing really well in this space. Let's involve him as an ex-AppSumo employee and build that relationship. So building relationships to always stay top of mind is one thing I recommend everybody do. Mm-hmm. If you meet somebody, treat them really well, build that great relationship, never burn bridges, never do that. Mm-hmm. And then AppSumo and I have been discussing about doing a podcast collection full of podcast tools that are already on AppSumo that can be curated into a collection. And then the conversation turned into, let's do a 12-hour live event with industry-leading experts and brands in my community, bring them all together to share a ton of value and support more people coming through that want to rely on our partnerships to launch, grow, monetize their podcasts. So although it's a free event, if you wanted to hire us to launch your podcast, then great. But if not, you're just going to get lots of support from industry-leading brands, Podbean, AppSumo. There's a ton. I don't want to miss anybody out, but Capshow, which is a AI podcast copywriting tool. Cast Magic, very similar. We've got Austin Armstrong, who is a TikTok sensation. He's got loads of followers, but it's not necessarily about the followers. He's a really cool guy. Everybody has been handpicked, and we have built really strong relationships with them over the last 2 or 3 years. And they've been supporting me with other events, but this one is our first ever 12-hour live stream, back-to-back speakers inside the podcast launch community. And there's a giveaway, and the giveaway is pretty special. So when you enroll, you are redirected to the giveaway, and the giveaway is only available for those that enroll.
You know, Chris, I have to tell you, this is kind of a funny story, and I'm just going to go ahead and add it into the podcast because this will tell people how excited I am about the event and how much, I love you and what you're doing. But so when I enrolled, registered, and the giveaway thing came up, and had the list, I started going through them, and I had to step away from my computer. And I wasn't able to come back to it. And then that night, my computer restarted. And I wasn't able then to finish going through the process because my computer restarted. And I was like, no, that cannot be happening to me. I still had like this many to finish going through to check off, And so I was like, it's okay. It's okay. I am... I'm there to watch these 24 podcasters. But anyway, it was like, this can't be happening to me. There were things that people I wanted to follow and, things I wanted to do. It wasn't necessarily for me about winning the prize, although I am very competitive. But it was about, because I wanted to go follow this person on Instagram and go, follow this person and do this. But anyway, it was like, this can't be happening to me. I lost that. But I sat and I made my list of people. You can't really see this, but I made my list of those individuals that I'm going to be bringing onto my podcast of partners that, I'll be able to interview and have here for the audience to hear. But I absolutely have become more excited about podcasting because of you and what you're doing. I, for the audience, I want you guys to know this. I was not excited about podcasting when I started, but when I met Chris a few weeks ago, Chris and I talked about having a challenge, and Chris challenged me to have a month of podcasting. And for every day in April, many of you in my audience know this, I did a podcast every day. Doing that, as Chris just mentioned, that increased my subscribers. It increased my viewers. And now I love podcasting so much that I want to podcast more often than I'm doing now, Chris. So you have really upped my game in podcasting. And I am so excited to be, somewhat partnered with you and being in your community. And anybody that's listening today that has even remotely thought about starting a podcast, I recommend getting in touch with Chris, and he'll give his information here in just a little bit. But join his community, get in his accelerator programs, and learn from him. He is a master of information to help you get started in podcasting. I truly mean that. And so, Chris, I want to ask you, what's next? What are you up to next?
Yeah, this is an exclusive because you shared an exclusive with me. So because I love interviewing members that are in my community, and we did one recently with you, Tonya, and you shared an exclusive about your nonprofit. Yes. I'm going to share an exclusive with you. Yes, we have amazing partnerships with people, and some are yet to flourish, but some, when you plant a seed, the tree doesn't grow straight away. So they take 1 or 2 years, maybe, or 30 days. But I have a team, me, Phil Better, my original mentor, and Mike Cavaggione, who is the founder of an editing company. We mastermind together every week, talking about how we can improve the podcasting industry, how we can look after our community. And we have the domain for, and they might kill me for saying this, but we have the domain for Podcast Choice Awards. And because that's important to us, because we want to help people get more authority by becoming a podcast award winner or award-winning podcast. So we have control of who we decide wins what awards, and we are enrolling sponsors every now and then who are going to be sponsoring the awards for Best Business Podcast or Best Marketing Podcast or Best SEO or Most Improved over the year, so that we can control the playing field. We launch, grow, monetize, but we also award podcasts based on the field. And because we have experts in just about any niche that we've helped launch podcasts for or launched a website for or whatever it is, then now we can control, okay, the best sports podcast goes to and it's awarded by AppSumo or it's awarded by Podbean in partnership with Podcast Launch Agency. So that's what we're working on. It might be live in 6 months or 12 months, but we will have more events coming up with bigger and better guests.
That is awesome.
But that's the plan, is to build the business on large campaigns, on great partnerships, and get more people to a stage where they're having success and they're also becoming award-winning podcasters.
That is phenomenal. And that in itself ought to encourage anyone who is podcasting today or wanting to start a podcast and run that as a business to join your accelerator community right there. I mean, that is phenomenal information, and I am excited about that myself. So, I always, in talking to you, the passion that you have about your vision, the company's vision, your personal goals, it comes through just in your body language, your voice. And I love that. I love that about you. You are, I have goals about meeting people like you. I do. And so I'm so thankful for our relationship and our business relationship, our friendship. And so I want to know, what do you enjoy most about what you do?
Oh my goodness. Well, what I enjoy most and what I don't get to do often is meeting experts in real life. The expert, I would say that because the podcast is a virtual podcast and I'm in my safe zone here and you're in your safe zone there, what I like the most is connecting with experts that have been on the podcast or that are attending my events. And last year, the podcast show London, I went down to London from May 23rd to 24th to connect with podcasters at different levels and just to get inspiration and learn as much as I possibly could. And at that time, I'd only met one of the experts that had been on my podcast, and that's because he lived in the same city as me. I decided to say to the organizers that next year I'm going to bring people with me from my community that have been on the podcast or have been on who have invited me to be on their podcast. They're going to be at this event. I'm not going to come back alone. I'm going to come back as a brand ambassador, or we're going to be running a competition or something along those lines. Well, the people that are attending the event on the 15th of May, about a quarter or maybe half of the guests that are going to be speaking the event are also flying into London to be at the event with me. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
You're bringing tears to my eyes.
but wow. I think that the friendships that I've made over the last 2 years, some of them have been online. And what I enjoy about that is I can connect with people all over around the world, and I can have clients in Hawaii and the Philippines and Canada and even Africa. But meeting them in person is just a different kind of energy. When I flew to Austin to meet Team AppSumo, to build and establish a real relationship with them by just like touching them and feeling them and being in Noah's condos and having sessions with them, learning about the AppSumo business. That's what lights me up, is learning everything. I don't want to be a podcaster. I want to be a producer, project manager, a marketing expert. I want to learn as much as I possibly can from the best. That's why I associate myself with experts and industry-leading brands. But so that's what excites me, learning everything I possibly can about the business, and then networking with experts in real life. And, I'm looking forward to the virtual event that we're hosting, but also doing more live interactions with people and establishing those relationships.
Wow. Okay, so
that's sorry.
No, it's phenomenal, and no kidding. You brought tears. I was like, please don't roll down my face on a real live podcast. Don't roll down my face, but they were there. We have to make some type of connection. So offline, we're going to have to figure out some podcast meeting, or the next time you're at AppSumo, we'll have to connect, because Austin is not too far from me. I think it's like 8 hours from me. So, yes, we will have to connect. I can make that drive, or I can fly there. So we will have to make that happen.
The goal is to meet the next time I'm in the US, which is I'd like to be in the US in September.
Okay.
Because there's the podcast movement and there's Funnel Hacking Live. But there's a couple of people that I know now that are in the US. I mean, 50 or so people that are in the US that I'd like to meet in person.
Well, if you'll send me those 2 events, I will see if I can get that on my calendar as well. So I would love to make that dream come true, because I love meeting people in person as well. That's phenomenal for me. So Chris, let people know how that they can reach you if they want to join your accelerator, your community. How can people find you?
Yeah, I'm going to do something a bit nuts, but I'm just going on recommendations of other podcasters that are doing really well. So you can go to podcastlaunchagency.com to learn more about podcasting, or you can send me a text message to +44 7880 519 445. That's +44 7880 519 445. That's my personal number.
Perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes as well, along with the other links that you gave me on the document. So we will put all of that in the show notes for people to reach out to you. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today. You have been a phenomenal guest. And as always, I enjoy conversing with you. You're always a wealth of knowledge and run a phenomenal program. And we will advertise this event for Monday and get that out there. And so thank you again for being here.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been fun.
All right. Well, audience, we appreciate you for listening. If you've not already subscribed to Influence and Growth Mastery, please do that right now. And until next time, goodbye, and I love you.